are you staring at me like that?
I don't know. It's like it's the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
My brain is, it's not blank. I wouldn't call it blank, but it's definitely in need of some conversation versus staring at a screen all week.
I agree. I humbly agree.
Yeah, it's been a long week.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads us right to what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah.
We've been interviewing for some positions here. And I don't know. I just feel like I want to put something out there to tell people how simple it is to get a job as a tech, kind of. But also, I don't know. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So essentially through the interviewing, right? I always tell you, we go through 100 to 200, maybe 250 resumes to find like one person. And specifically I'm talking about like a tech, right? Someone that can obviously operate a help desk, can help customers with their computers and kind of get them up and running. And it just seems like going through 250 resumes to find one person is a lot of work.
It is. It seems like it's a lot more than other, let's say, spaces, like, I don't know, not outside of tech, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people that have jobs outside of tech, and they also have said that they've come through a massive amount lately. And I think that's part of it is just the way that the job world is right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all it is. But I feel like we have some simple requirements to be on the team, and they're nothing like crazy. So I guess this is just to kind of help people figure out, if you want to get a job in IT, working for a company, what are some of the things that they look for to get hired? And I think that we're a little bit more stringent than others. But yeah, I mean, so when you look through resumes with me, what is something that immediately stands out to you?
Just off the top?
Yeah. Like what's one thing when you see on a resume, you're like, hey, I want to talk to this guy or this girl?
I would say just being able to have you're just saying off the resume.
Yeah, just because the first thing, right? It's kind of funny, like hiring people is like dating, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
So you get the piece of paper that tells you about them, and then that intrigues you enough to like make a phone call,
right?
Which then
ask them out on a date.
Yeah, I guess it's such a weird way to phrase it. And then you make the phone call and you kind of get to know the person, and then you say, hey, why don't you come in and meet us in person? And this is not how everybody runs it, right? This is not a method that everybody should follow. This is the way kind of we do it. Come in for an interview and talk to us. And then once you do that, we pretty much know right then and there whether this person is going to fit in the team or not.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to do well, whether they're going to last long. And you know what? We're not nowhere near perfect. We're still perfecting our plan, but the resume is the thing that initiates the phone call.
Right.
So like, I know what it is for me. Truthfully, it's just the experience. Like I like to see someone having at the entry level help desk role. I just like to see an internship.
Yeah.
In regards to, in our world, it's business IT. So in regards to supporting business IT.
Right.
Right. What are your thoughts?
I would have to agree. I think if I see on their resume that they have some form of help desk experience or some form of troubleshooting experience when it comes to, them receiving tickets or them receiving anything that they have to go and solve a problem, because that's at the end of the day what we want,
right,
is someone that can solve problems. But that's like the main off the top when you see a resume. That's what I like to see.
Yeah.
And then from there, when they come in, then we'll start to look for different things, right?
Yeah, right.
So, there might be some other things as far as maybe some specifics that they might be well-rounded in.
Right.
Understanding like how servers work, how networks work and stuff like that. That's nice, but I guess, that help desk experience from previous.
And that's kind of part of my phone call, right? So,
right.
And again, I'm talking specifically hiring IT people in a help desk role. Probably this whole conversation is going to be on like the level 1 tier.
Yeah.
So like, I like to see the internship. I love the bullet points of the things that they've done because it helps me, but it doesn't help me know that they know it.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, I've messed with Office 365. That's cool.
Yeah.
But do you know Office 365? Have you really played with the admin console? Things like that. So, but the resume intrigues me enough for a phone call. And then once I get on the phone with them or you get on the phone with them, it really changes. I mean, the way that I do it, the first half of my phone call, I just like to get to know them. And like, I ask them questions like, how do you take going from a big environment to a small environment if they're used to working in a bigger company? Or, how do you prioritize issues? Are you just going to go one by one as they come in? Is a CEO more important than like the front desk person? Is it who screams the loudest? Is it something that can I knock out these 5 quicker and then move on to the harder stuff so that way I can get 5 resolutions? There's no right answer or wrong answer per se.
Right.
But those, I like to see how they think and how they troubleshoot. And then, I ask questions like, how do you work under pressure? Because in IT and a lot of other service industries, something might be out and you got to get it up.
Right.
And one of the other ones is I love is, how do you handle lack of communication?
Right.
As much as we want to make sure that communication is key, we're also human and we forget. Like, there's a lot of times that I'm super busy or you're super busy and we do something and we're like, oh, I forgot to tell you this.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, what the heck happened here?
Yeah. Drop the ball right there.
Yeah, it's like, oops, I forgot to tell you that,
Yeah.
And so I've worked in environments where communication is difficult. I've worked in environments where communication is it flows fairly well. And not to say that one is always better than the other, but obviously communication is better than no communication.
Yeah, I agree. But as far as like the pressure aspect, whenever you get on calls with potential candidates, do you feel like when you're asking them those technical questions and how they conduct themselves kind of tells you how they handle pressure? Or do you feel like it's like off the mark completely when they happen to, let's say, come in? Do you feel like it's a good, understanding from there, how they're answering?
Sometimes. Some people are really good at selling themselves.
Yeah.
And so, and that's kind of the second part, right? The first part is I ask like questions like this. And the second part is I ask really technical questions, to your point.
Yeah.
And I'll ask, what does this mean? And explain it to me in layman's terms. And what does this mean? And then sometimes I'll say, hey, what does this function do? And how would you know that it's the thing causing the problem? Because the more you dive deeper, the more you get to know what they know. Because at surface level, everybody could explain it and maybe people could quickly search it on Google.
Yeah.
Because they know that you're going to be on the phone with them. So be it. When you can go deeper, you can really understand whether they just have surface level, how deep are we going to go basically with this topic? But I don't always look for perfect answers on everything because we also want to find people that are moldable and help them get there. And our job is to help them grow in their position, not just here's your job, do your job, and, hopefully one day you'll learn on your own and maybe we'll promote you and good luck, right?
Trial by fire.
More or less, right? And that's kind of not what we want to do. But the technical questions can show people, can show if people handle pressure well or not if they don't know it. But what if they know it, right? Then the last thing that I do is I flip the script. And I'm probably telling my secrets right now, which I don't usually release this stuff because, I wanted to keep it surprise. But I guess, hopefully a new candidate's not listening, or maybe they are and they can get this one right.
Who knows?
I'll ask all these super technical questions and you've been through it.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, I flip the script and then I ask a really simple question. It's a story question, right? Like in math, it's a story question.
Yeah.
And then I ask a really simple story question and the answer out of that is supposed to be something very simple. And oftentimes I catch people over thinking and being super technical with how they're going to fix this problem. And in reality, it's a very easy answer, which actually you got right. Did
I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember. This is some time ago.
It's a while ago.
I remember you got it right. And so I was like, okay, this guy can actually think on his toes and troubleshoot because obviously all this is about troubleshooting.
Yeah.
That's like my phone process. And that has really helped me weed out the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And not to say that people are bad. And what I mean by bad is that they don't fit within our organization. Because listen, a lot of these people, and if not all of them, already have a job in IT. And they're going to get offered by somebody in IT because they fit somewhere.
Yeah, they do.
But for us, what we look for, I think, is a little bit more stringent, a little bit more specific. Because when we get into the in-person interview, this is where really you shine more than I do. You ask the majority of the questions, and you ask a combination of technical questions and customer problem-solving questions. But I feel like you ask more of the customer problem-solving question. Yeah. And I literally sit and listen almost the whole time. Because what I'm looking for is the other stuff. The stuff that makes them a good employee for us. For instance, emotional intelligence, culture, what I have written down, team player, right? Those things are equally in my opinion, if not more important to the organization, because it's how everyone interfaces with each other. And there may be someone who has really good emotional intelligence, understands that, a really good team player, but just isn't in the culture. And hiring that person wouldn't be a bad thing, but they would feel a little bit left out on the inside jokes and, whatever goes around in the office. And not to make like it's not to be cliquey, right? We don't want that either. We want to be accepting of all, but sometimes you find people who just kind of feel like they don't fit. And even though they might be awesome at what they do, they might be really good at solving problems, they just don't fit. It might hurt the dynamic of the entire business.
Right.
And I think that's the part that people miss the most.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And you're all obviously at the end of the day, you're also looking out for them too, because you want them to feel comfortable too, right, within your environment. I think when people come in to in-person interviews, the thing that I like to see is that it feels easy to talk to them. Like and they like to talk, and it feels like it's easy to have a conversation with them, and they're very personable. Because at the end of the day, I feel like throughout my experience, whenever I feel like I've built a relationship with, the clients, the users that I talk to, it makes helping them so much easier. And it's so nice,
Right.
And I feel like when you build that kind of rapport, you can only do that when, you're good at, creating that relationship, right, and good at talking and stuff like that. So I feel like I'd look for someone that's great at having good conversation, great at being personable, relating to people. And I think a part of that that plays into it is, being empathetic, putting yourself in their situation, kind of understanding where they're coming from, because a lot of the time, maybe you'll find techs that can't picture themselves in a lot of the situations that these users are in.
Right.
And they kind of maybe overlook what kind of issues they're presenting and maybe not give them as much urgency or make them feel good. And I think it just makes the situation feel like maybe you're pulling teeth with, right, the person you're working, right, with. So yeah, definitely they need to, be able to build that relationship. And I don't know, I have a couple other things that I want to talk about if you're good with it.
Yeah.
So I think the number one thing on my list is having business awareness. So, and let me explain that. So please. Your user is from, X business, and they do X, let's say task, so let's say I'm supporting them. If I don't know what they do in their role, if I don't know what business their business is, it kind of makes it hard for me to kind of take care of their issues as well as maybe if I knew the ins and outs of what applications they use or what things what things they need to accomplish their job, because that also plays into the urgency too. Because if they come in to me and their email is messed up, right, and their primary role is their primary role functions through email, then that kind of urgency is like way higher. You right, kind of can kind of appreciate more what kind of tools they need to and how to solve them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
So I think that plays in the part where we're like building that relationship too, because once you build that relationship with the user, then you can kind of understand deeper what kind of things they need the most. And once you get to that level, you can then kind of help suggest better fixes for them, right, versus, in other situations, you may apply one fix for one user that's doing one role, and maybe another user has the same exact issue, but another fix will then apply better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's very true. Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
So I think those tie in really tightly, and you need someone that kind of think on and empathize and, put themselves in. It's a whole mix, right, a whole culmination of that. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I feel like I do that well, because I feel like I'm friends with a lot of the people I talk to.
Yeah.
So it's and it also makes it so much more pleasant for me.
Yeah.
As a tech.
And you get more grace from them too.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
We're human and we still make mistakes as much as we don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we do, or we don't call back as quick as possible, when you call just a random 1-800 number help desk for whatever, your internet doesn't work, you get, a a random person you've never talked to, your patience for them is probably less than if you were to call your friend who works at that company.
Right.
Right? You would give them a little bit more time to look into it. You would feel assured that your issue is not, I don't know how to put this. I guess you're more assured that your issue is just not another number.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's someone cares on the other end of the phone to take care of that for you.
Right. Yeah.
And what you're describing about being empathetic is actually kind of what I touched on about emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I pulled a little verbiage about emotional intelligence from Google, right? And this is what it says. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in a positive way to relieve stress, communicate efficiently, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict.
Right.
And I think that is so key. I think that is more key than the skill set of being a good tech. Because I think if you have that and you have the mindset to learn, that stuff can be taught, the tech side.
Yeah.
But you can't quite teach the emotional intelligence side. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I think that's true.
But let me ask you a question. This is a tough one. We talk about being like open with people and talkative with them and all that. What advice would you give to someone who's very introverted but really enjoys this side of IT?
I mean, I would say that I'm introverted, so I don't know if I have advice, but the way I think about it is when you're introverted, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to have good conversation and, talk with people, and build a relationship with them. I think when you're introverted, it actually makes you feel good, when you're put in that situation. So I feel like it's a common misconception that introverted people don't like to have social interaction.
Gotcha.
So for me, at least, I enjoy the social interaction, and I think other introverted or more, because it's more of like a spectrum rather.
Okay.
So I think other introverted people probably would enjoy it, introverted techs, let's say. Maybe at the end of the day, they're more kind of worn out because of all the social interaction. But I mean, we all have as introverts, I mean, I can speak maybe for the introverts. We all have our kind of our outlets to kind of, recharge.
Right.
And get ready for the next day. Right. And I have that on my own. Maybe I won't share it, but I play video games.
We know it's gaming, yeah.
I relax and watch, movies and shows with my wife.
I've seen you game. I don't know if I call that relaxing.
It's outward relaxing.
Yeah.
to take
it on others so that way
exactly,
you can feel.
Exactly. So I mean, I guess my one advice would be, if you're introverted and you're in a role where you have to have a lot of social interaction, make sure you find a way to kind of recharge. And like I said before, a lot of us introverted people, we already have that, in place because we've had to live with it for our whole lives. So on the extroverted side, you guys are all set.
Yeah. I mean, more or less, you're right. It's funny is the older I get, the more I would find myself to enjoy recharging by myself.
Right.
Not to say that I'm introverted. I'm definitely extroverted, significantly extroverted.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, it is calming and relaxing. So, okay, let's get back on topic because we can go on tangents forever. I mean, those are kind of some of the things that we look for when interviewing. So you interview, you got the experience, you are well with people, you're moldable, you get the job.
Yeah.
Now what?
I think from there, you just have to be kind of open to learn. And this is one thing that I've seen kind of in the IT space a lot, is a lot of people, and I mean, maybe it's warranted for some people, or maybe I think it's not warranted in my opinion, but maybe some people look at it differently. But people have a lot of ego.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that kind of hurts and is toxic, and it doesn't cater to the experience of the end user,
Right. Do you think that that's something developed over time, or is that something that people just have inheritedly?
So, I mean, I think it's both. I mean, if we have a conversation with someone in an interview process, right, there is kind of an interview mode. You can't really for sure understand
Right.
their position.
Not everybody.
Right, not everybody. But when you're in the role, and a lot of the time, sometimes you feel like maybe you're above because you have so much more knowledge,
Yeah.
and
You can do something that they can't.
exactly, and you kind of look down on them because of that. But the way I think about it is, if I was put in their role,
Yeah.
they'd run circles around me, right? Like
Right.
if I look at the end user's role, they're an expert in what they're doing, right?
They have a skill set that you don't have.
Exactly.
And you have a skill set that they don't have.
Right. And that's how business is, right? You look at all these different businesses, we complete each other in that way.
Yeah.
Like we've chosen the spot we want to be in because there is, and not, this is not for everybody, but there is a passion there.
Yeah.
We chose that because we like it.
Absolutely.
And let's say we're speaking to an accountant, right? They can do things that we wish we could do,
Sure.
and we do things that they wish, but we complete each other in that way. And I think that's one thing that I would like not to see in a tech, where they show that ego, like I'm better than you and I talk down to you. No, this is not, in my opinion, this is not right.
So oftentimes what I tell people, to your point, is it's like, we're people that do things for people so they can do things for people, right? So ultimately what I mean is, like, let's say we support an automotive dealership, and the sales rep is the one having a problem, right? They call in, they're a person who needs help from a person.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is to sell a car that was made by people for people, so the people can get to their destination, whether that be work or whatever.
Yeah.
So they can then help other people do a task. Let's say it's a doctor, right? They can get to a hospital to perform surgery on someone who might be a pilot who flies planes. I mean, I can go on forever and ever. We don't do things for robots. We don't do things for items per se, right? Our end job is to help other people.
Yeah.
And I think the problem in IT is we look at it like we're helping a computer in a sense, right? Because we're behind a screen and that's what we do. And I think people forget the human aspect of even just like life in general.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one thing that I always say. It's like we're people to help people, to do things for people,
right?
More or less.
And you know how you just described it, you know what it reminds me of?
What's that?
So like, I forgot the term, but it's like the nature's web or something, like like how like there's an animal that relies on another animal that
the food chain, right?
It's not the food chain per se, but it's like something web.
Okay.
And it's so interesting to think about, like we have something so similar within the human population.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It is cool. And it's funny that you can relate it all the way down to animals and beings that were just created for a purpose and a task. And like, obviously I feel that we have more meaning than that in our life, more or less, right? But
yeah, maybe some people would disagree, but it's
fair enough. I mean, yeah, a lot of us, work a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, bottom line, it's like, there's no reason to be rude to somebody who doesn't have the skill set as you. There's no reason to talk down to people, because they could technically do the same thing to you as soon as you need to get a mortgage for a house, let's say.
True.
Right? Yeah. Buy a car, again, in that same scenario. You don't want them talking down to you when they're trying to sell you a car.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good. You're not going to buy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We are selling our solution every single day. And when I say selling, I mean, you're on the phone. Let me fix it by doing this. Sometimes people don't like change.
Yeah.
You kind of got to sell it. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, I get it. I get you don't like change, but I promise you this is going to be very, very helpful for you.
Mm-hmm.
And let me do it. Let me know what you think. And if we have problems, I will come back and see if we can find another solution for you.
Yeah.
And I think more than 9 times out of 10, because that's only 90%, people are very happy with it because of the way you approach it.
Yeah.
Because we've approached clients before too, and we're like, hey, we can do all this. Like, no. We've been through this before. It's turned out awful. Never again. And then it takes like a year almost, or sometimes 6 months, depending on the people, to build that trust.
Yeah.
And then they hit us up like, hey, do you remember that thing that we told you we don't want to do?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I find that to be funny because it's like, yeah, we can. And it's just building the rapport with people, letting them know that we're here for them. And then when they're ready to kind of get out of their comfort zone, we'll help them through the whole thing. So that way the end result is not a flop.
Yeah. And like you touched on a little bit, I mean, with what we mentioned earlier too, all of the things that, play into that is the end result is trust. Right. They end up trusting, and we build that relationship based on trust. And so therefore they're more willing to jump into things that are better for them, right?
Right.
And I mean, I feel like there's a slightly on topic, but it's a little bit off, but it's really important too and you mentioned this a lot, and I agree with this, which is not being a yes, like, or not being a yes man.
Yeah.
So like there's like a fix to do it a certain way that they want to do it, but a better way, and it'll be better for them in the long run.
Right.
But like you were talking about a little bit, where they're used to it being a certain way, but we know that in the long run it's going to be, it'll bring back even more, know?
Right.
So I think that's another aspect where they're looking more forward and trying to improve, and not just keeping things, how they are, and bandaging things,
right.
Keeping it the way they are. I think that's important too.
And a lot of times in the sales world, when I talk about this, I said, we're not yes men, we're why men. And they say kind of, what's a why man? And I say, we're going to ask you why, right? Yeah. A lot of times you say, I do it this way. And if I was a yes man, I'd say, yes, you do. And then fix it for you to continue to do the same task that might be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And instead I say, why do you do it that way?
Right.
And then that, again, it's the same thing that you brought up earlier. It's you want to understand their job role and what they need.
Yeah.
So sometimes they explain it and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You're right. Let me fix that for you.
Yeah.
Sweet. You did two things. You got them to talk about what they do and what they're excited about, build their rapport. And then you got to learn about how they operate. So that way you, maybe even with a different client, know people in this role typically function like this.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you come across it and you ask, why do you do it that way? And I've even gotten the answer, I don't know. That's the way that I've just done it forever.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that answer like that are really willing to look into something better because they don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you're right. Like, it could even be as simple as upgrading them from Outlook 2010 to like whatever the most recent version is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously technology grows, it improves,
right?
But a lot of people get set in their ways. And I mean, it's not necessarily the end of the world. There's always that if it ain't broke, don't fix it type methodology. But
I would call that more of a mentality than a methodology.
Yeah, mentality, sorry. But I mean, there's always something better out there. I feel like that, you should, and if you build that relationship with them, they're going to be more willing to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point about the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I love when people tell me that, because I flip the script, because a lot of people agree. They're like, yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But then I go, but if there's a better way, why not pursue that?
Right.
Right? Because a lot of people want to get better in their jobs and do better things and all.
Right.
And so, I love that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, but if there's a better way, why not try it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a reason why there's the modern car and then there's the older type, the older style.
It ain't broke.
Right. It's not broken. It works, but there's a better way of doing it. Yeah. And there's a more refined way. Right. And at the end of the day, we experience the fruits of that labor, you know what I'm saying? The change. So I think that's definitely cool. And, I guess, if you want to talk about some more points, we can go over that.
Go ahead.
So one thing which I focus on a lot is attention to detail.
Okay.
So, I mean, when it comes to, let's say I'm solving a problem. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm solving a problem and I know how to fix it, but there's something that I always like to ask myself first is like, if I apply this fix, right? I always think about what it might break in the process.
Right.
And I think maybe if you have a tech that's, let's say, not paying attention too closely or thinking about all the possible outcomes of what they've done, it can cause more problems at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I like to see within people, and this is something you can gain over time, but it's something that for sure is nice to see at the start, and the willingness to do so, to pay attention to, what they're doing, look into all the possible things that happen as a result, and making sure that when I apply this, it will not cause any more harm. Right.
So I want to interrupt you because it reminds me of a young me. When I first got into technology, I didn't really have anyone to train me in this, right? I was a very trial and error kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I wouldn't know if this would break anything or not.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't either and you ask.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, hey, would this cause another issue before I apply this? Right? And I'll be like, yeah, it will, or no, it won't. And most of the time, if not all the time, I tell you, no, you've got your bases covered. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
When I started, I really didn't have anyone I could call and be like, hey, if I run this, am I going to break more things? And so out of, I just want to get it done, because my mentality is go, get it done. I'll hit the enter button too fast, and I will then be in the car driving to a site because I took their entire network down. Now, I don't do this anymore. This was a long time ago. And to your point, but I guess to back up, that's how I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot from doing that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I didn't harm any businesses. I didn't put anyone out. It was all during the weekend. No one really knew about it. It just took me extra time to fix it.
Yeah.
But it gave me a lot of really good knowledge. But if I had someone that I can go to and say, hey, and the other side of it is I want it to be Mr. Big Shot. I can fix this myself. And then I break it. And I'm like, okay, I shouldn't have done that. If you're willing to go to someone and say, hey, I think I figured this out. I'm pretty sure I know how to fix this. Can you just look at it really quick and tell me if I'm going to break something?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear the answer no, and then you do it and it works. Boom. It's in your head.
Yeah.
Problem solved. You know what to do next time.
Right.
Someone says, yeah, this is not right. And if they're willing to explain to you why, hopefully, then you obviously know, okay, so you know two things now, the solution and why your solution didn't work.
Right.
And then now you can piece these together to kind of create your whole portfolio.
Exactly.
More or less.
Yeah. You have your own little knowledge base in your
Exactly.
head. Well, I mean, you're right. And it's kind of like, I mean, the two sides of it where, like, let's say you do end up going through with what you were planning to do and you break it. I mean, at the end of the day, you do end up learning, hopefully, if you have the right intentions. But I feel like it's better to avoid that at least. But it all depends. If you have the resources available to you, use those. And I mean, I feel like that goes into the next thing is if you have resources available, if you have your team next to you, I think it's important to be able to collaborate with your team and, bounce ideas off of each other and look at each other's work and make sure, hey, like if this, is this right? Is this wrong? Let me know what you think.
Right.
And you guys can come together and solve it as a team if needed. And a lot of the time, in my experience, I may have a strength over my colleague. They may have a strength over me, but because we're together, we make each other stronger.
Right.
And a lot of the time, what I like to do is if I don't know something, I like to ask someone that I know probably has a stronger footing in that space,
Right.
and say, hey, can you work with me on this? And I want to watch what you do.
Yeah.
And so therefore I become stronger. So I want that kind of attribute to be with the person that is working, coming in. I want them to be able to say, hey, I want to work with you. I want to learn with you.
Yeah.
Kind of it's kind of like, not really, I don't know if it's like, would you say humble approach?
Yeah, I would, because in one sense, if you're not humble for that, you're going to be the one that says, I'm going to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
Right. And that was my issue a long time ago, was I really wasn't as much. And you kind of come down and say, wow, there are people out there that know more than me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn from everybody. I'm going to be a sponge.
Of course.
Yeah. And I respect people that do that, because that's harder to do. It's harder to ask someone for help. Mm-hmm. Maybe more as a guy. I don't know if that plays into it. It's harder to ask someone for help than just to try it yourself and then fail almost sometimes miserably.
Yeah. I mean, I think it also hinders the user too, because let's say you're on the phone with a user, and regardless of the complexity of the issue, if you go to all the resources and exhaust all the kind of like resources you can directly interface with, like let's say Google, knowledge bases, and you feel like you can't solve the problem, and you feel too stubborn to kind of reach out to the outside resources you have, like your partners and the group that you're within, I think it kind of hurts the user, in my opinion. I think if you find yourself in against the wall, you should this plays in with the collaboration, employ with your team to kind of help you, and then you learn and get better, and then you can solve the problem faster next time. So
and it hurts the user, because instead of spending 10 minutes on the phone, you might spend 3 hours doing stupid stuff that you don't need to do.
Exactly.
When the fix is very easy, and you might even know it. Sometimes you just need someone else to look at it, and it's like, oh, I knew that. I needed a separate set of eyes.
Yeah, I've done that so many times.
Me too. And I do that too. And I'll like even have a new software that I haven't played with, And I'm like, I know it's right here. I know it's right here. And then I'll call them. And as soon as I call them, they're like, have you checked this? I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember now. Thank you for the phone call. I'm happy it was quick for both of us, but I thank you for being on the other line, you know?
Yeah.
I would have spent another 2 hours.
Yeah. Sometimes you need that second pair of eyes. Yeah. I think that's definitely important. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, when it comes to just any person in general, I think it's really important to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah,
be accepting. Hey, I made a mistake. I've understood what happened. This is how I resolve it. This is how I prevent it from happening again, and then move on.
Yeah.
Don't let it kind of like don't dwell on it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when they make mistakes, whether it be big or small, they kind of dwell on it, and it hinders their future performance, right? And I think for sure, just kind of have like that, short-term memory loss kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, a lot of athletes, they kind of talk about you to be great, and a lot of times, not all athletes, say this, but to be great, sometimes you got to have short-term memory loss.
Yeah.
So you let's say in basketball, you go walk up the court, you make a play, it doesn't pan out, and it's time to go, back on defense, and you're still thinking about the last play.
Yeah.
You're not in the moment.
You get in that slump.
Yeah, you get in that slump, and I think a lot of that can happen in the tech side too. So I think it's definitely important. Take what you can from it, but don't leave the rest.
Right.
Go and find what you need next.
Right. And a lot of times, like, my wife and I will have conversations about whatever, and something would happen. Someone would make a mistake, and she'll ask me a question. Are you upset about it? And a lot of times I'll say, I'm not upset about the mistake. I'm upset that no one corrected it, or that no one went around to try and figure it out. They left it there, and that was that. We all make mistakes. That's fine.
Yeah.
But your character shows when you go out of your way to try and fix it.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of businesses will make a mistake as a whole or whatnot. Right. And then they'll charge the client again to fix their mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That's not cool. Like, hey, you know what? We made the mistake, and we're going to be honest. This was our fault. So because it was our fault, we are going to fix it. We're going to put whatever resources we have to. I mean, we're not going to shut the company down, obviously. But, if we have to spend an extra whatever to fix this for you, that's going to be on us.
Yeah.
And that builds a really good relationship with your partners in the business sense, but also with your employees, to know that, hey, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to be fired for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to learn something out of this because we're going to correct it.
Yeah.
And the clients aren't going to get mad, because most clients understand that people make mistakes. And they know that if we make a mistake, that we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
So it kind of puts ease on the team, I feel like, on a leadership standpoint. But then, having a team that's willing to try different things, and it's possible they'll make a mistake. We don't want them to make massive business mistakes, little things that maybe only they notice, right? Or something maybe a little bit more, but we don't want them to shut down an entire business. Again, back to your point, we'd rather them ask before they do something.
Mm-hmm.
So to sum it up, essentially, what's your takeaway from this?
I would say someone that can, be empathetic, talk to people, build relationships, but also, be able to stay humble, ask questions, learn from their mistakes, and, just grow with a team, use the resources they have around them. I would say that's the gist of, what I would look for. And all the rest of it, all the extras, they can come on along later, because if you have someone that is passionate about tech, all that knowledge and all that, ability comes.
Yeah.
The other stuff is harder to come by.
It is. It's. Yeah. And I would agree. I think what I kind of take away from this is, the very beginning portions, we want to see that they have a little bit of experience, that they're interested in this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, if we had an internship program, then it would be a little bit different, right? You say, hey, come in with no experience, we'll teach you. But for an employment, we just want to see you have a little experience. We want to know that you can work with people, that you understand the strengths and weaknesses of everybody, and that you can fit where you fit.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets along, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have a passion that drives you, right? But with that, you stay humble, to your point, to then learn more and get better at it. I think in simple terms, that's what we look for in a tech. And I almost don't feel like it's asking enough. But when we go through 200, 250 resumes to find one, I feel like it's probably just right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, I don't know. Should we go hire someone else and try this? Has this given you more clarity on what we do, I guess? Because I don't know.
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think having conversation about, you know, something like if it's not just in your head and you kind of let it out and have that kind of interface, you can kind of clarify, like you're saying, what we want, what was needed, you know, and see, you know, basically how we both feel.
Yeah.
See if it matches, I guess.
It seems like it.
It does. So, yeah.
All right. Next podcast, let's argue a little bit more.
Are you? Yeah, sure. Do you want to talk about console versus PC?
As I say before, and as always, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. No problem.